Welcome back to another episode of Style Drops. First off, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Zara and I'm Gail's virtual assistant, and I will be doing all of the heavy lifting, while she is busy juggling Pantone decks and gathering tile samples. On this episode, let's take a little trip through time to see how we went from designing homes that actually functioned for families, to creating Instagram sets that look great, but made you afraid to sit on your own furniture. Somewhere along the way, we completely lost the plot about who we're actually designing for. The 1940s, 1950s, when form actually followed function, interior styling had a pretty simple mandate: make spaces that work for their desires, that centered around fireside chats. Post-war America was all about efficiency and optimism. Women were running households like small corporations, and interior design reflected that reality. Colors were chosen because they hid dirt and wear, not because they photographed well in natural light. Fabrics were selected for durability, because replacing your sofa every 3 years wasn't an option. Furniture was arranged to facilitate conversation and daily life, not to create the perfect backdrops. The wild thing? These homes felt more stylish and pulled together than half the perfectly curated spaces we see today. Their main objective was about family function, ease of cleaning, and entertaining. The 1960s, 1970s is when interior styling became about self-expression. This era was all about you be you and let me be me. And honestly, it was kind of glorious. People weren't trying to impress their neighbors with their good taste. They were trying to express their personalities, politics, and philosophies through their living spaces. Shag carpeting wasn't a mistake, it was a statement. Orange and brown wasn't an unfortunate color combination, it was a rejection of the sanitized perfection of the previous decade. This was design for the self, in its purest form. Sure, some of it was a little rough, but it was authentic. People lived in spaces that reflected who they actually were, not who they thought they should be. Even the formal living room, that monument to impressing guests, started to disappear, as families decided they'd rather have spaces they actually used. The 1980s, 1990s was the time when status became the point. Interior styling became less about personal expression and more about signaling success to others. The formal dining room made a comeback, not because families were doing more formal dining, but because having a room you barely used showed you had money to waste on square footage. This was the birth of magazine-worthy as a design goal. Rooms started looking like they were staged for photography because, increasingly, they were. The rise of home and lifestyle magazines meant people had constant examples of perfect rooms to compare their own spaces against. Suddenly, it wasn't enough for your home to work for your family. It had to look like it belonged in better homes and gardens. The emphasis shifted from, does this serve my life, to, does this look impressive? The 90s doubled down on this with the emergence of home design TV shows. Now people weren't just comparing themselves to magazine spreads, they were watching other people get room makeovers and feeling inadequate about their own spaces. The 2000s ushered in HGTV and the flipping revolution. Suddenly, everyone was an interior designer, and every space needed to be move-in ready, which really meant sterile and inoffensive enough to appeal to imaginary future buyers. This is when designing for others reached its peak absurdity. People started making design choices based on what might help their home's resale value, not what they actually wanted to live with. Beige became the safe choice because it was neutral and timeless, which really meant boring and forgettable. The rise of house flipping shows convinced people that their homes should look like model homes, perfectly staged, completely impersonal, and ready for someone else to move into at any moment. God forbid you should actually live in your own space and leave evidence of that life. Personality became a design flaw. The 2010s is where Pinterest perfection took center stage. The rise of styling anxiety arrived. Suddenly, everyone had access to millions of images of perfect rooms, and the bar for what constituted acceptable interior styling shot through the roof. Your kitchen wasn't just a place to cook, it was supposed to look like a Williams-Sonoma catalog at all times. This was designing for others on steroids, except now, others meant not just your neighbors or potential buyers, but the entire internet. Every space needed to be photo-ready because everyone was photographing everything. 2010s to current day ushered in the era of when your space becomes your personal brand. Instagram turned interior styling into performance art. Your home wasn't just your living space, it was your personal brand, and your content creation studio, and your ticket to influencer status. We started buying furniture based on how it would look in photos, rather than how it would function in our lives. The number of people who bought beautiful but uncomfortable chairs just because they were seen on Instagram became a legitimate design epidemic. Then 2020 happened, and suddenly everyone was stuck in their homes 24/7. All those beautifully styled but functionally limited spaces became just that. Limited. People realized pretty quickly that their spaces became more functional as a photo shoot than for real life. Dining rooms shifted to spaces for their children's classroom, and/or a remote home office. All at once, the formal living room looked great, but now real living was the priority. Now questioning if those chairs that they purchased sat as comfortably as they looked, the reality set in, and some people started designing for themselves again, creating spaces that actually supported their daily routines, hobbies, and relationships, rather than their Instagram feeds. Others doubled down on the performance, turning their homes into full-time content creation studios. The great design debate brought into question, have influencers trumped real-life designers? Or have we just taken a system of perceived order through these neutral tones and limited personal elements, combined with the current look too far? Which brings us to today, where we're experiencing the motherlode of all, an identity crisis with interior styling, when ironically, we're more globally connected to design trends than ever before. But yet we're more confused to how we want our spaces to feel like, because many of us forgot to design to how we want to live, versus a perceived look. My hope now is that we all return to comfort, style, and functionality. That is the triple threat when designing a good space. There's a growing number of people who are exhausted by all grey, all beige, and all white interiors. Enough with the disingenuous spa look, or the overly curated lobby feel. Letting go of performative interiors and returning to their authentic daily existence. Here's the thing, your home is supposed to serve your life, not the other way around. The best interior styling has always understood this fundamental truth. The most beautiful, satisfying spaces aren't the ones that look like magazine spreads. They're the ones that make their inhabitants feel comfortable, supported, and authentically themselves. When you design for your actual life, your actual needs, and your actual personality, the authenticity becomes the aesthetic. This doesn't mean your home can't be beautiful, or even Instagram-worthy. It means the beauty should emerge from how well the space serves your life, not from how many likes it receives. The homes of today that feel the best to be in are the ones where you can tell someone actually lives there, loves being there, and has made choices based on what makes them happy, rather than what makes them look good. Because at the end of the day, the most stylish thing you can do is create a home that genuinely reflects and supports who you are, not who you think you should be. Until next time, please like, subscribe, and comment below.